Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this session. My name is Alison. I work for Trinity College London as the Head of Business Development for Language and for SELT. And I'm joined by my colleague Deborah, who is our SELT account coordinator. I imagine many of you here know Deborah, had been spoken to Deborah before. So I'd like to welcome you to this session. Great that you can join us. This is navigating the changes to the skilled worker visa route. And you may have joined our last session, which was just around the immigration white paper. So this session is really focused on changes that have come into play from the 22nd of July and very much focused on the impacts this might have on candidates. So thank you for joining the session. A couple of housekeeping things. We will be recording this session and sending out a recording. So if you'd like to watch it back or share, please feel free to do so. If you have questions that you would like answered, please use the Q&A box, because that will mean we don't lose any questions in the chat. So you'll find the Q&A box across your navigation, either at the top of the screen or the bottom of the screen, but you can pop your questions in there. So I am delighted to introduce our speaker today. It's Mohammed Hafaji, and Mohammed is currently a partner at Latitude Law. He has considerable experience in all aspects of immigration. Since he began his legal career in 2009, and he has a particular focus on business immigration. He has experience representing businesses across the UK and submitting sponsor license applications and making sure that businesses comply with their license duties in accordance with the Home Office requirements. He also regularly advises employers in relation to employee compliance, including the right to work checks. Mohammed also represents high net worth individuals and businesses across relevant UK visa routes. And he's also an ambassador for Trinity, for Trinity's UKVI language testing. And he's also an accredited police station representative and is recognized in Legal 500. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Mohammed, who is going to lead this session. And again, if you have questions, we'll pop back on at the end and answer your questions alongside Mohammed. Okay.
Thank you very much, Alison, and good afternoon, everyone. If you just give me one moment, I'm just going to share my screen so I can get to the beginning. So thank you again, Alison, for the introduction. As Alison explained, I'm a partner at Latitude Law, and today I'll be discussing or explaining navigating the changes to the skilled worker route following the changes which came into force on the 22nd of July, 2025. So starting right from the beginning in regards to the actual changes itself, it all came about from the immigration white paper that most of you may have heard of or heard about. So the purpose of the white paper from the UK government is to reduce net migration, and it was published on the 12th of May 2025 by the UK Home Office. And one of these snippets from the white paper was, according to the Prime Minister's speech, which accompanied the white paper, was that net migration had risen quite considerably from 2019. So as you can see from the figures which were stated, according to government figures, it was at 224,000 in 2019 and increased to 906,000 by 2023. And as a result, the white paper proposals seek to turn the page by reducing migration across all categories, which included work, study, family, and settlement. I know this webinar is primarily focused on work, and it appears from the white paper that the majority of changes were in regards to the work, skilled worker route, in regards to reducing that net migration as a result of it. And just going back to the remark that was made that the government calls a one nation experiment in open borders with a more control and contribution-based system. So in terms of tightening up immigration, that's one thing that they aim to achieve. So one of the key changes to the skilled worker visa route, as some of you may have joined the last webinar, which I hosted in regards to the actual white paper proposals, there were certain proposals about increasing salaries and the level of skill, RQF level. Now, quite sooner than expected, most of us or most immigration practitioners didn't expect the changes to come in until at least autumn, but within 2 months, the statement of changes were implemented and the rules changed on the 22nd of July. So just going back to one of the key changes was the changes from the regulated qualification framework level from level 3 to RQF level 6. So from 22nd of July 2025, all skilled worker visa roles, or in order to be sponsored under the skilled worker route, the minimum skill level had increased from RQF level 3, which is A-level experience, to RQF level 6, which is degree level experience. This doesn't necessarily mean that the applicant must have a degree, but that the job being sponsored is assessed at the level of that skill. So, for example, now it has to be at least a degree level type of role. There are some exceptions where jobs under level 6 can be applicable, which I'll mention later, but the starting point for skilled worker visas is that the level must be at RQF level 6 moving forward from the 22nd of July. A downside to businesses is, as a result of the increase to RQF level 6, it's caused at least around 100 eligible codes which were initially on that list being removed from the skilled worker list, and therefore had a major impact on businesses who wish to sponsor migrant workers in roles under RQF level 6. So, for example, just to give you an example, for example, a chef, which is a role below RQF level 6, has been removed from the skilled worker list and therefore not applicable for sponsorship after the 22nd of July 2025 under the skilled worker route. When there are usually changes, there are usually transitional provisions that the government put in place, and transitional provisions do apply for those who were on RQF level, on roles or jobs below RQF level 6 and on sponsorships before the 22nd of July 2025. So those skilled workers who were on sponsorships before the 22nd of July 2025 in RQF level occupations between 3 and 5 will still be able to renew their skilled worker visas, switch employment, and take supplementary employment within these roles, provided they continue to stay on this particular visa route of skilled worker visa. In terms of supplementary employment, there's been a change to that. So all skilled workers who had certificates of sponsorships before 22nd of July 2025 will still be able to take supplementary employment in roles between level 3 or above, or level 3 and 5, should I say. However, all new skilled worker applicants who had their certificates of sponsorships assigned after the 22nd of July will only be able to take supplementary employment in jobs at RQF level 6. So basically that limits what sort of supplementary employment can be undertaken, and anyone that's got a skilled worker sponsorship after 22nd of July can only do supplementary employment up to 20 hours on a job which is at RQF level 6 and above. In terms of, apart from the increase to this skill level, there's also been a substantial increase to the salary level as well. So all occupation-specific going rates have been updated in line with the 2024 annual survey of hours and earnings, also known as ASHE. And the general threshold for skilled workers before the change of 22nd of July 2025 was 38,700. However, from the changes on the 22nd of July, that has now risen to 41,700. So that is the general rate. However, sponsors will either need to pay the general rate, i.e. 41,700, or the relevant going rate for the role, whichever is higher. So, and also a minimum hourly rate of £17.13 per hour must be paid. So just to give you an example, the general rate, as I said, is 38,700. However, if you are applying for a role, let's just say an IT manager role, has a going rate of 45,000. So instead of paying 41,700, you'll have to pay at least 45,000. It's whichever is the higher from the two. Apart from the general rate, which has been increased 41,700, rates have also been increased for new entrants. So new entrants are those who are under the age of 26, or anyone who's switching from a student visa or graduate visa, or has switched within the last 2 years of their student visa or graduate visa status. The salary threshold has increased from 30,960 to 33,400, and therefore that could have a big impact on sponsorship, because a lot of employers may not be able to afford or pay graduates a salary of at least 33,400. And it's increased quite substantially from the initial rate of 20,960 back in before the changes on 4th of April 2024. The higher figures have also been included in the settlement rules for skilled worker visas. So anyone who's approaching the 5 years of residence will now have to meet the higher general rate, or the rate which is applicable for anyone who's under transitional provisions, which will be on the next page, in regards when it comes to meeting the salary requirements at the time of settlement after completing 5 years in the UK as a skilled worker. So in terms of transitional provisions, which I've just slightly touched upon in my previous slide, so anyone who was on a skilled worker visa before the changes, so before the 22nd of July changes, most of you may be aware there were also changes on the 4th of April in 2024. And so anyone who was on a skilled worker visa before the 4th of April 2024 had a general threshold of 29,000. However, following the increase, that's now increased to 31,300. And transitional salary threshold of 31,300 will also be applicable for settlement for anyone who had a certificate of sponsorship assigned before the 4th of April 2024. So in short, the general threshold has increased to 41,700. However, if somebody had a certificate of sponsorship or was on a skilled worker visa before the 4th of April 2024, that was the date before the most current change, they have to earn at least, or be offered a role, but their salary has to be at least 31,300, either for the extensions or at the time of settlement, or the relevant going rate for the role. There are transitional provisions in regards to rates for roles for anyone who had a sponsorship before the 4th of April 2024, and when that does apply, we have to make reference to a relevant table in regards to what the going rate for the role that the government, or what they are in accordance with the ASHE salary requirements. In terms of, at the same time as part of the changes, the government have also introduced a temporary shortage list. So an interim temporary shortage list, also known as a TSL, has been added to appendix skilled workers, and around 52 roles have been added onto this list. So how I made reference at the start that the RQF level has increased to level 6, there are certain roles which the government or the UK modern industrial strategy have identified as being important and therefore should still be on the list. And these are roles below RQF level 6, between RQF levels 3 to 5. However, these are time limited in terms of being on the list, and they can be removed at any time. So there is a risk that if somebody is on a TSL sponsor role, which is applicable for sponsorship right now, they may not be applicable for sponsorship after 31st of December 2026. So these are temporary from the date of change of the 22nd of July 25 to 31st of December 2026. So there is that concern that if somebody has a sponsorship up until 31st of December 2026, for example, and a role which is currently on the TSL list is no longer applicable for sponsorship because it's been removed, then there could be a tricky situation when it comes to the extension or settlement. So only time will tell in regards to whether they stay on the roll, stay on the list, or whether it's still the TSL still continues after 31st of December 2026. And at the moment, as I mentioned, there's 52 roles which have been added onto there, which are between RQF levels 3 and 5. Alongside the TSL, there's also the immigration salary list. Now, immigration salary list was already there before the changes on the 22nd of July 2025, and before the name ISL, or immigration salary list, came into play, it used to be known as a shortage occupation list. So the immigration salary list includes both RQF level 6 roles and also RQF level 3 to 5 roles, which the Migration Advisory Committee have identified as being having been in shortage when it comes to roles here in the UK, and that's following their reviews in 2023 and 2024. Similar to the new entrant salary rate, there is a reduced general salary rate of 33,400 for jobs which are on the immigration salary list. There's no additional discount. So again, they either have to meet at least 33,400 or the relevant going rate. And immigration salary occupations on the list have a removal date of 31st December 2026. So similar to the TSL, at the moment, this list is only applicable until 31 December 2026. And after that, the ISL will be completely, well, most likely will be removed. And again, it could cause an issue for anyone who's on a sponsorship, who's on for a role, who's on the ISL, if it's no longer on any other list when it comes to appendix skill occupations. However, there are two care work roles, like care workers and home carers and senior care workers, which is currently on the immigration salary list. However, unlike others where they'll be removed on the 31st of December 2026, there is a date of 22 July 2028 for care workers who are currently in the UK will be able to continue or will be able to apply for permission to stay up until this date. So it goes beyond that 31st of December 26 for care workers and senior care workers. The Migration Advisory Committee have also been asked by the Home Secretary to complete a comprehensive review of the immigration salary list by July 2026 to determine which occupations at RQF level 3 to 5 should remain eligible or added to the skilled worker route. So there may be jobs which are currently on the ISL, which could be removed before the deadline of 31st December 2026. That would be dependent on the review, which is going to be published by the MAC in due course. One of the key changes in regards to dependents being able to come to the UK, so from under the skilled worker route, so from 22 July 2025, workers who are sponsored in RQF level 3 to 5 occupations on either the immigration salary list or the temporary shortage list will not be able to bring dependents along with them. So that could be an hindrance for a lot of potential migrant skilled workers if they are unable to bring their partners or children under the age of 18, because their roles are only on the ISL or TSL, and the roles are between RQF level 3 and 5. Dependents will not be permitted to join them in the UK. However, this does not apply to occupations at RQF level 6 or above. So as long as the job continues to be at RQF level 6, then dependents will be able to join a company, the main applicant, with them to the UK on the skilled worker route. And at the same time, this will also be for those who are already on the route prior to the change of 22nd of July 2025, they could continue to have their dependents in the UK. In terms of care worker visas, following the changes on the 22nd of July, entry clearance applications there's been a complete ban for care workers, or there's a complete removal, should I say, for entry clearance applications from the 22nd of July 2025 for any care workers from overseas. However, existing care workers and senior care workers will still be able to apply for permission until the 22nd of July 2028. So if a care worker is in the UK, they could continue to apply for extensions up until that date. However, if somebody is on a different route, for example, a graduate visa, they could apply to switch to a care worker visa, again, before the 22nd of July 2028, as long as they've been working for the care worker or senior care worker company for at least 3 months prior to the date of the certificate of sponsorship being assigned. So again, in simple terms, if a graduate, for example, has been working for a care company for 3 months prior to getting the certificate of sponsorship, they'll be able to apply to switch to the health and care worker route in country before the 22nd of July 2028. But anyone who's wishes to come from overseas on a health and care worker visa, that is now completely removed from the 22nd of July. So in terms of the changes, which I've explained, there's been changes to the skill level from RQF level 6 to from RQF level 3 to 5 to RQF level 6. There's been changes to the salary requirements. Think of it as a baseline of 41,700 for the general rate and 33,000 for new entrants and those on the immigration salary list. There's been changes to the introduction of the temporary shortage list, where there are 52 roles are on there, which fall within that 3 to 5 RQF level bracket. There's been changes to dependents only being able to join main applicants if the role is above RQF level 6, and anyone below cannot join as dependents in the UK. And the key change of no overseas sponsorship for care workers from the 22nd of July. So they were all the main changes which I've explained. But these are some proposed changes now, which I'll explain following the white paper, which haven't come into force yet, but there's a possibility that it should come into force in due course. So in terms of the...
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Yeah. I'm so sorry. I don't think your slides are moving across. A few people have commented.
Oh, okay. What was the last one? Sorry.
We're still on reasons for the changes in response to the white paper.
Oh, is that the first page? Oh, I'm really sorry.
I've only just realised that somebody put a question in the Q&A, so apologies to...
Okay. Let me stop sharing and try that again.
Okay.
Unless if it's easier, if there's a way of you sharing it, it might work, and then I could just tell you next page when I'm on, if that's okay.
Do that. Would you prefer me to do that?
Yeah, if you could do that, just in case we have the same issue again, if that's okay.
I think this has all of them in.
I'm happy to have a quick run through if you wish.
Yeah, I don't know where you'd like me to start here. We will share the slides after as well, just to help you know, people watching the recording. Dependents you went through, and care worker visas.
Yeah, I was on that's where I was explaining up until the one before.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Should I continue from here?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
I'll do. You just say next slide, and I'll do that.
Okay. Yeah. No problem. Sorry, everyone. I'm not sure why that had happened on my screen. It was changing to each slide. So just going back in regards to the proposed change to skilled workers, as I explained, these are not implemented as yet, but they are proposals in the white paper, and as we can see from the changes which came into force from the skilled worker changes, that there's a strong possibility that all this will occur in due course. So one of the changes is the increase to the English language requirement from level B1 to level B2 CEFR. So when it comes to skilled worker visas, the requirement is in regards to all 4 components, so speaking, listening, reading, and writing. So all applicants will have to have at least a minimum level of B2 for whether it's entry clearance, switching into the category, or even settlement. However, this won't be applicable to students who have attained a degree from a UK institution, and students with a degree from a UK university will be able to continue to meet the requirement automatically, and unlikely for this to be affected. And English language requirements will also be introduced for dependents. There is talk of at least a minimum A1 level for skilled worker dependents when it comes to entry clearance stages. There's not so much information in regards to extensions, but similar to a spouse visa, for example, it could be where a minimum A1 level is required for dependents, could be an A2 level, which is a slight increase when it comes to extensions, and then possibly a B1 or B2 when it comes to settlement in the UK. So that will be introduced for dependents when the changes for that comes into force. There's also going to be a change in regards to the graduate visa route. So at the moment, graduate visa applicants or graduate visa holders can remain in the UK for at least 24 months or 36 months if they are if they've completed a PhD. That's going to reduce down to 18 months in due course as well, according to the white paper. Next slide, please. Okay. So under the current system, most migrants on work and family worker routes are eligible for indefinite leave to remain after 5 years of continuous lawful residence. However, the white paper has proposed a qualifying period for settlement is likely to be increased to 10 years. So again, there's been no mention of those who are already on skilled worker routes, whether and if they don't, by the time the changes come into force, will their settlement period increase to 10 years? It's one of these that we don't know at this stage. However, transitional provisions too tend to apply, which I've explained previously in my previous slides, in regards to salary thresholds and having transitional provisions. So there's a strong possibility that those who are already on the skilled worker route before the changes come into force in terms of the increase of the settlement period should hopefully be able to remain within that 5-year period. And the government's rationale is that settlement is earned over time by individuals who can demonstrate a sustained and measurable contribution to the UK economically and socially and civically. So while the 10-year threshold will become the default, the white paper still, however, does confirm that certain visa categories can still have an accelerated pathways to settlement. When we say accelerated, as in it will probably be that 5-year period. That's usually dependents of British citizens, particularly spouse and children under the family routes, refugees who have been granted refugee or humanitarian protection can usually apply for settlement after 5 years, and those who have encounters domestic abuse or in regards to asylum matters or even domestic when it comes to partner visas or bereavements, there should be a sooner time to apply for settlement. And as that's the last point which I've mentioned at the bottom about the vulnerable migrants of domestic abuse or trafficking will be able to apply for settlement sooner. Next page, please. So that is the end of the slides. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
That's great, Mohammed. Thank you so much. There are actually a few questions in the Q&A, and I've just reminded people if they have some questions that they'd like addressed to just pop them in there. So let me just open those up, and then we'll do those first, and then I have a couple of things from Trinity as well. So the first question is, if a person has come to the UK on a skilled worker visa and he's 21 years old, he is not on the new entrant salary rate, can he change onto the new entrant as he's been in the UK since July 2024 and he's now 22 years old?
In regards to that, this is a very good question. I mean, it's something that we don't usually get that. It's a very rare situation where somebody is on a new, somebody is not on a new entrant salary rate, and then wishes, when it comes to the extension, whether they'll be able to be paid a reduced salary rate. I don't think that's possible, but it's one of these that I'll just have to double check on in regards to, and I could get back to you in regards to that. Feel free to drop me an email. But in regards to usually new entrants, anyone up until the age of 26 can apply under new entrant rates. But it's one of these that I'll just have to double check that answer on.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to suggest, Rahat, that you get in touch with Deborah on this question and we can come back to you. So I'm just putting Deborah's email in the chat.
I mean, one thing I could answer on that question is depending on the role that he's on, the SOC code. I mean, if it's above the 33,000, well, in terms of getting the skill worker, he's got it since July 2024, so it'd probably be after 24 changes or depending on when the cost was assigned. If it was above, if the salary is above the going rate for that particular role, then he'll have to, in terms of salary rate that will have to be paid, will probably be above that new entrant salary rates anyway. But it's one of these that is a bit difficult to explain without knowing the actual SOC code and the date of when the cost was assigned, whether it was assigned before the 4th of April 2024, considering you came to the UK on July 2024. So depending on a bit more information, I'll be able to advise accordingly in regards to whether that's possible.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And Rahat, feel free to, Mohammed's details will be here as well. I think they're on the next slide. I'll just move over to that. It's M. Hafaji at Latitude Law if you want to. Is that okay, Mohammed?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely.
Do that question directly. Yeah. Okay, that's great. We also have another question about for skills testing. So for B2 candidates who want to prepare as a Trinity approved service provider. So I'm assuming, Rahat, that you're asking about doing preparation for the ISE exam, and I'm going to come on to that in a minute just to explain the two tests and the support that's available for service providers. So I think that's probably the best way to answer your question. So I know there are some people here who are already working with us as approved service providers, and I think we probably have some people on the webinar too who maybe haven't worked with us before or aren't yet part of our network. So we have a wide network of different types of organizations. We have private language schools, we have training colleges, we have charities, we have community groups, all of these people who support candidates in some capacity on their visa journey, and who may require a secure English language test. So you can apply to work with us as an approved service provider. And you get dedicated support from Deborah, who's here. So Deborah's our account coordinator for all of the service providers. We do training as well, annual training, to make sure that anybody working directly with students and candidates is really comfortable with preparation for Trinity SELT exams. We also offer the ability to do free rescheduling and cancellations for candidates and for clients without a fee. So that's quite helpful if somebody has some reason that they can't attend their test day. And then we have a marketing support hub as well. So that enables you to use some of the Trinity assets and obviously the logo to identify yourself as an approved service provider. And that's all free access that you can kind of go into and access both resources for marketing, but also for teaching as well. We house a lot of the resources in there, schemes of work, for example, and access to different videos and so on. So, so that's sort of about working with Trinity. It's free to become an approved service provider, and just reach out to us or Deborah. She can send you an application form if that's of interest. So just as a reminder of kind of where all of the Trinity tests sit. So we have the two skills, speaking and listening, at A1, A2, and B1. And these are the tests that are currently accepted for things like spousal visas, extensions, and the JESI B1, the grade 5, is far and away the test that's mostly taken here in the UK, and that is for citizenship, indefinite leave to remain, and naturalization. So those are the three tests. It's a speaking and listening test. You can see differs in time depending on the level that is required for the visa. We then have the 4 skills tests. So this is again where all of the worker visas sit, also student visas as well. You can see the different ones there. Health and care visas are all B1, B2, or C1. So if you are a service provider and you're thinking of offering preparation for ISE, we can work with you on that and making sure that you get the all of the resources that you need available. We have schemes of work for ISE as well as we would do training regularly for preparation for ISE too. So I hope, Rahit, that answers your question. If you are interested in running the 4 skills courses or preparation courses, we can help you to do that. Okay, so I'm going to end it there. I want to say a huge thank you to Mohammed for conducting today's session. If you do have questions, feel free to direct them to Deborah, who's our SELT account coordinator. If you have general questions about Trinity Language, you can also get in touch with us at uklanguage@trinitycollege.com. And as a reminder, we will send the recording and we will send the slides. Apologies for the technical hiccup there at the beginning, but we'll send the slides too, so you can listen to it and you have access to the slides as well. Okay.
Sorry, Alison, if I could just go back to Rahat's, just whilst you were explaining the Trinity services. I've just had a quick look at the guidance, and according to the guidance to your question, Rahat, is as long as you're under 26 at the age of entry clearance or permission to stay, you should be able to apply for as a new entrant. So usually the usual requirements, as I explained, is if you're switching from student or graduate visa or have done within the last 2 years, that's one of the requirements. But the guidance does state that as long as you're under the age of 26, either for entry clearance or permission to stay, you can apply under the new entrant salary discount rate. So that should be a possibility.
That's great. Thank you for clarifying that, Mohammed. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us. Pleasure to have you, and watch out for more webinars in the future. Again, get in touch if you've got questions, but you can expect a copy of the recording and the slides coming to you shortly. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you again, Mohammed.
Thanks for attending, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Mohammed.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye. Bye.
Have a
Bye.
great
Bye.
evening, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.